and it's thinking. And I can see all of you in YouTube. Okay, so thank you everybody for joining. Very welcome from research committee of Phi Mu chapter of Sigma. I am not sure how many of you are Sigma members. You all, okay, some are not. So if you would like to learn about Sigma, we can always provide you some information. So research committee of Sigma and Phi Mu chapter, our aim is to talk about research, and we recently kind of configured it slightly differently, because I thought research committee for any of these chapters or an organization like Sigma should be about supporting and mentoring and helping others to develop research and publication. So that's the aim, that we are going to organize quarterly webinars, seminars on different topics. So so that people can find them useful. And we will also try and mentor and support people with and match people with others to find some mentorship and to be able to develop some networks and take it from there. I am assuming all of us are nurses. There's nothing wrong if you're not, just asking. No, okay. So Sigma is an organization which is basically for nurses. And it started off from America, and it connects and networks people around that. So when I am going to use example of nurses, please don't get offended, or please don't think it's not relevant to you. It's just that because I am a nurse, and most of the audience that we talk about usually in those, or we try and make it relevant. So that's the reason we use those examples. Having said that, lots of issues around publications and research are pretty similar, regardless of the people that we talk about. So thank you for joining. My name is Parveen Ali. I'm a professor of nursing and professor of gender-based violence based at the University of Sheffield and Doncaster and Bassett Law Teaching Hospitals. You might be wondering why two titles, because I'm a nurse, so therefore professor of nursing. And in that role, my job is research capacity building among nurses, midwives, and allied health professionals. And Jim, thank you. I have got two of my PhD students who are social workers as well. And professor of gender-based violence. So in that hat, my research and the work around is domestic abuse, gender-based violence, and inequalities in health and related research. So combining these two things, as I just said that, we thought these webinars would allow people to learn more about research, publications. With regards to publication, by the way, I am editor-in-chief of International Nursing Review, which is one of Wiley's journal. And so in that capacity, I also try and organize seminars, webinars, raise understanding of the publication process and everything else. I also sit on Journal of Interpersonal Violence Research from domestic abuse and gender-based violence perspective. And I'm basically a public health service research professional. So today we have got Tiago, who is going to, we were thinking of like how to develop these webinars. And Tiago came up with the idea that, okay, I'm not sure, I'm a novice researcher or novice publisher, so I'm not sure if people would find it useful. And I said, why don't we talk about from that perspective, that you share how it was researching or publishing from a novice writer's perspective, and that would hopefully allow us to develop some questions. And if needed, I can bring in my editor-in-chief hat and may be able to help and answer questions that you may have from anything. And we could all discuss. We all bring different expertise. I've just told you about my expertise, but I'm sure you all have got wealth of experience, questions, expertise, and we could make use of all of those things if that's okay. Okay, so without further ado, I would like to introduce Tiago Horta Reis de Silva. Please correct me if I'm speaking your name wrong. He's lecturer in nursing and education at King's College London, and he holds a BSc Nursing and BSc in Traditional Chinese Medicine an MSc in Emotional Intelligence, Counseling, and a Master's in Business Administration, and an MSc in Traditional Chinese Medicine. He's part of the adult nursing department and assist with the running, development, and administration of BSc program. He's also the faculty partnership lead for the University College London Hospitals and for moving and handling for the same faculty. He collaborates with international teaching organization, delivers teaching on multiple subjects in higher education institutions and colleagues in Spain, Portugal, Greece. He's a senior fellow of higher education and a fellow of Royal Society of Medicine and a fellow of Faculty of Nursing and Midwifery at the Royal College of Surgeons and Islands. Gosh, have you started studying, as soon as you came into this world, Tiago? Very impressed with your degrees.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Parveen. Thank you.
So thank you for agreeing, and I would let you have your slides and just take it on from there, yeah?
Thank you. So yes, as Parveen was saying, I study a lot. I love study, and I'm not that shy. I can talk forever. But when it was to writing, I was feeling a fraud and say, how I write it. And English is not my first language, it's my fourth. And what if I write something and people say, what do you mean? And what if I lose my job because I don't know how to write and I'm an academic? So there were so many fears that I say, I never. Until with colleagues, they did a very similar seminar that I'm doing today, and they boost my morale. They literally, not literally, but figuratively kick me and made me know, Tiago, start writing. It's better a rubbish 5 minutes of writing than no writing at all because you have all those fears. And this is why I said, you know what? Yes. And after I start writing, now I love writing because before I write, I need to read a lot. And I can notice that actually I'm learning so much more because I need to read so many other authors before I write my own point of views from them. So this is why it is very, very useful. And I love this. And this is why, again, this is not how to do, including we have here colleagues that will be definitely more experts than me. I'm a very novice. In 1 year, I start writing, and I'm very proud, including the first editorials that came out. They were okay. They were not brilliant. But again, I'm very proud of them because it was where I started. So this is what I want to inspire, if I can, if you never wrote. And if you are a fantastic writer, we might do some collaboration and I can learn from you. So that will be my aims and objectives today. And I will be sharing my screen, but the idea of these will be more a dialogue and discussing and point of view, how was for you and what did you feel it that worked for you and not really. I'm start now. Oops, can you see my screen? I'm sharing all the stuff, or is divided in different areas?
We can see 3 panes.
Okay.
One's got the slide, one's got the next slide, and then your notes.
Thank you.
Did
not
you
that
want
I
to
have
go in the screen sharing mode, like the
yeah,
full screen mode.
the fantastic thing is I have 3 screens because I'm in the office. So I'm now trying to find the right screen. So I love this. So I think if I press this one, will be the right one. Presenters view. Am I sharing the right? No. Okay, so it's the other
waiting.
one. Okay, I think a third time is the right one. If I go screen 1 now, yes. Can you see the big screen now?
It's coming. Yes, it is.
Perfect. I promised a third time, so good. So yes, so this will be a very, we will be sharing all my pitfalls and my challenge and everything and how I overcame them. And I will be very happy to hear from you also, so we can all do this together. Okay, so today we will explore the challenge faced, what lessons did I learn, the strategies for novice writers and in my journey specifically, and how to start with the first article, because we need to start this journey somewhere. And definitely we need to start this planning and coming with this idea. And I had a good colleague that said, start recording things on their phone, because sometimes when we get great ideas, is not the best place that we have pen and paper. And I start doing it. I read this article about, I don't know, scales about false prevention. I like it. I need to do some assessment to see what is the best scale available. And it is very useful to have that way to record ideas, because I'm sure it happens with you. You have all these fantastic ideas and then you don't write somewhere and then you forget. And I notice, including putting these post-it notes and voice notes, when I see them, yes, I promise that I will come back to this. So I definitely want to write something about that. So it is useful to start having these plans and ideas, and everything is possible. And just because it's nothing out there, maybe it's perfect for us to actually to find something. Start drafting. Depending where you are, where is your work, you might have some support, and don't feel shy to actually to ask for support. And I noticed that, for example, in King's, we do have colleagues, they help writing articles. And until yesterday, I never asked any help, because I was terrified and saying what they will think that I can't write when I'm marking assignments of my students. So it's using the resources that we do have and reviewing the paper that we have in front of us, and don't be scared of drafting. Also in this drafting, it did help with me, and I will speak later, the Pomodoro technique. And this Pomodoro, because it's like that tomato that we put in the kitchens to control the time. And I know I have colleagues here from Italy, so I hope I don't say badly in Italian. But I don't know if it happens with you. I'm a perfectionist and control freak. And I had always a fantastic introduction, because I spent a good 3 months to read the introduction and changing, and nothing else, because, oh no, I need to change that chapter. No, I don't like that paragraph. And with the Pomodoro technique is stop complaining, just get on the paper, don't assess at all. Right now, it just write everything, like automatic writing if you want. Everything that you want to write, all the reference, everything, and do not critique. And you normally have timing, so can be 15 to 20 minutes. And then it's when you go back and you assess. And doing that, I notice definitely I have more work done, because otherwise it removes that auto-sabotage fears and thoughts that review your introduction. No, it's not good enough. Well, if you don't carry on the introduction, it's no point. You don't have an introduction, you have an editorial. So it is very useful to just remove all the fears and just write. You are on your own with your paper in front of you. It is very important revising, and obviously I know Parveen will come and give some more details, especially on the editorial point of view, but I peer review a lot, and also I think that is very useful. You have some website like Publons that is for free, and you can register and you can decide what journals would you like to receive articles from peers. And reading others, it helped me to understand my own style and say, oh, actually I didn't think to insert that, actually that reads better, and stealing some ideas, some styles, and improving my own. So definitely that does help. But as a peer review, it's one of my pet hates, is when there is a lot of misspellings, grammar that you cannot understand at all. And again, I'm not the king of grammar, as you can notice. But when you can't understand at all the idea, it is concerning. And it puts straight away the whole manuscript that you sent in a very bad light. So very likely that will be with major changes, accepted with major changes, or rejected, because they say, well, you don't know how to write academically. So definitely revise. Does that make sense? If you are a waffler, which I'm in that group, ever reads, does that very confused because you repeat the same idea over and over? Are you over the word count? And if you put all of that, did you read what is the journal about? What are their aims, objectives? What are their scope? Because that will help you. Yes, I'm submitting to this journal, and very likely they will accept it, because I saw other articles with this journal. They like these type of articles. So it does help you to actually to make a strong point. Editing, and it is very important that you don't get too defensive with the feedback. Receiving, and sometimes it's painful, I know, when you receive, oh, it is accepted, but with major changes, or rejected. Don't take that so personal. And I know it's very easy to say, but have a break, read the feedback, and very nicely, the majority of the editors, they write why they did reject. So that does help you to understand, okay, I need to improve on this, fair point. And you can actually improve your own work. And finally, you publish. And this publish, from editing and team publishing, can be some weeks and months that you go back and forth. And sometimes the editors, Parveen, don't listen this, will say, oh, are you happy to change this, that? And you say, no, my point, I want in my article this, because I think it is stronger in that way. And this is completely fine. You just need to justify why you want that. And so many times, I will say 99%, I go with the editors, because obviously they know what they are saying and what is the best for their journal. And once or twice, not more than that. Again, I'm a novice. I said, no, actually, I prefer that way, because otherwise it is not correct according with this, and this author. So it is okay also for you to stand your ground. And as always, people say the ancient saying, there is so many fish in the ocean. Getting rejected for one journal, it's not the end of the world. You can just read other journal, and try to submit, and maybe will be okay. So it is okay to not get the first journal. I got some rejections, and definitely reduced my fear of rejection, to learn from it. Yes. So the site I was saying is Publons, and I think now they changed their name to Web Science. But I will give the link in the question. And it is very useful. I peer review a lot. You can actually have that link directly to your profile. And I use including in my academic work. Good. So some challenge. The lack of experience and confidence, it was major. And I know some of us that are here, we are academics. I don't know. I was that syndrome, imposter syndrome that I had, and say, they will catch me. They will see that I don't have a clue what I'm talking about. They will fire me, because if I can't write, how can I be a teacher or a lecturer? So it is a skill. More you do it, removes that fear. And I'm now obsessed with writing, and I would love to have more hours to actually to write more, because it is vicious. As soon as you start writing, as soon as you start reading, I use now my commuting time to read new articles from different authors. You start enjoying it. And I learned this thing. Oh, you know what? I'm teaching this to my students, but actually the new research says this and this. And discover it's so empowering. So definitely it is a skill. So more you do it, definitely you will be more confident. Sometimes it's choosing the topic, because everybody already talks about pain. Everybody already talks about this subject in social working. So sometimes it's so difficult. And Ellen, that is here too, we have a passion for nursing of older people. It's massive. It is a specialty itself. Where do I start? What do I write about nursing for older people? But at the same time, you think, well, actually, not a lot of people write that. So you know what is the perfect area for me to write? So I can show and share my passion and get more people to enjoying this profession and this area of expertise. Writer's block is very difficult, and you will find it sometimes. So it's how I can now go after this. And this is why sometimes getting conversations with senior colleagues, discuss, including sometimes approach editors. They are happy to ask you for some topics in your expertise. It does help. And remember, you are the expert, so you might not know how to put on paper, but you know your topic. So having someone that writes every month so many articles might be a good help. And sometimes it's this procrastination. Why do I write? What's the point? I don't get anything from it. No one pays me to write, so and I don't get any money from it. And what if I write and then someone tells it's wrong? So why I bother? So it is difficult. And again, procrastination don't come from a fear place, at least what I'm reading more often, or from a lazy place. Again, links very much with the first topic that we said, is lack of experience. I don't want to perform badly. I'm terrified of writing. So any excuse to not write is a good excuse. So this is why this procrastination sometimes comes beautifully. Because I say, oh, no, I'm too busy. No, well, you are too busy, but you were 3 hours watching TV. The 3 hours you could write a good 500 words. So it is sometimes comes from that fear side, not necessarily lazy place. Sometimes understanding the jargon of the journal. What is a scope? What is a review? What is this? What is that? Or how much I can write? Why they only accept this? Open access fees, publication fees. And we see all of that and say, I don't have a clue. And I don't know about you, but when I start seeing some price and say, so I need to write, I kill myself to write it. And then you ask me to pay £3,000. No, thank you very much. So it's all of these that can put you off, and you don't necessarily understand all the jargon of that journal. So, and sometimes me included, the formatting for me is including citation. If I write all the time, and normally the nursing journals, the majority is APA, but sometimes different journals, they will ask you different styles of referencing, and changing everything will take a good hours. Well, if you are a dinosaur like me, I know there are softwares that help you to do faster. I'm a dinosaur. I'm very manually. But if you have EndNote or Zotero or other softwares, I'm not doing publicizing. No one pay me for that. But I know they exist, and some universities, they have that for free. It helps you to automatically change between formatting and referencing. I don't. I do manually. And it is long process. But definitely I put in the end, because it was something that put me off for some time, was the feedback and the criticism, because sometimes it was, for example, the first one that I submit, it reject, but no feedback at all. Say, oh, great. So it's bad, but I don't know why it's bad. And sometimes it is very personal, because you take our piece of work like a son or a daughter, because we nourish it, we love it, we wrote so beautiful, at least in our eyes, and we submit to someone, and it's like someone say to your son or daughter, they are ugly. You don't take that very nicely, and it's very personal. So it is difficult about that. And for example, one of the articles that I did very nicely, and I'm very proud, and I learned so much, I did with colleagues, very senior colleagues, so professors, readers in my field, and they knew so much that so many of the terms they were saying was completely over my head, but made me work harder, because I want to be at nearly the same level to understand at least the conversation, and I learn a lot from them. So my shout out, if you have colleagues that are already writing in your fields, that you know them and you work with them, and not necessarily in academia, can be in hospital, my recommendation is approach them, speak with them. If you are especially in Sigma, this is a good shout out. I love this association because it's all from nurses for nurses, and you have very senior people. The other day I just got starstruck when I read your book. I literally have that in my desk, and you see these people that are so senior and so good in their fields, they can help you, and they are very keen to help you. So this is why, if you are a novice nurse, or not that novice, but you would like to write, definitely I would recommend. And as I can see the chart about, for example, these surveys, Nandani, that will be wonderful to do some collaboration. And this starts from, so many times I'm launching and with this, oh, this student did this work. Why we don't invite the student? We do something about, and be proud of all the work that you do on your teams in the clinical setting, but also in academia, but especially in the clinical setting, because sometimes you do so fantastic work, but no one knows about. And this is why, as healthcare professionals and other colleagues, will be very good for us to actually to have a good shout out. Thank you, Parveen, to write. So, good. So things that help me, as I said, definitely mentors, people experience, they could help you. They could help you, including in the grammar, and including with that helps to learn. I just did one article with an editor in another journal, and she was fantastic. Again, I wrote 6 pages, and she killed it and reduced from 6 pages to 3. But it is so nicely read now because I quite enjoy it, because it does make sense. I noticed that I had a lot of waffle. She converts some of the text in tables. So I know now in my next publication, I will take that feedback and I know I will be slightly better, I hope. So this is why buddy up, get more people. It is enjoying the journey. Realistic goals and deadlines. If you need to write something, start now, and realistically, you aim for 4 to 5 months. You can do faster, but normally it's 4 to 5 months until publication, because that means time for you to read, time for you to start writing, time to review, time to send maybe to some peers to give feedback on that, submit. Peers will assess it. Very likely they will ask for some changes, minor, major, or reject straight. And that will give you some time to actually then to resubmit until be published. So it is important to don't get with a very tight deadline, because then the quality might not be that great that you would desire. And break down in this writing process. Again, it is important that you understand what type of writer you are. Do you prefer a big chunk on a weekend, 4 or 5 hours, and write without stop? Or do you prefer to write every day, 20, 30 minutes? Everybody's different. Personally, I tried both. I prefer big chunks of time, because then I am there. If I put every day, I will do something else. So it is important that you understand your own life and how you do it. And it is important to also understand this conduction between the research and how to do the literature review. What are you learning? What is already out there? Are you repeating something that is already out there? It's a saturated subject, so maybe you are just saying what someone just published last month. What will be your twist? Could you write in a different way? It is important, and for me, helped me massively, this writing journal or a notebook. And I call it my writing journal. And I also ask in my office to get a whiteboard. And I literally, I cannot show you because it's, but I put all the articles that I already wrote, and to what journal did I submit, and what was the feedback. And if they reject, okay, across. Which second journal did I submit it? So I don't resubmit to the same journal they reject. I don't want to antagonize the editors. But it is interesting because that helps me. It is in front of my eyes. So every time I say, oh, I didn't check that article. Let me see how it's going. So it helps you to inspire. So definitely, since I did that and I stole the idea from other senior colleagues, it did help me to understand how to do different things. And joining writing groups, we founded a writing group here in Kings, and this is how I write it. I hate it, and I was horrified when I needed to. But I said, no, Tiago, this is like an assessment, and you need to produce an article to be published in 6 months. And they broke down that every month we need to present, I think it was 500 words or 600 words. But it did help me to actually do, okay, I need to do this. And it was lastnight.com, but at least I needed to write. And when I noticed, I already wrote it. And I quite enjoy. I actually felt a better teacher from writing it. So this is why start doing that in a group. It is understanding, and it is enjoying the job. And you can see more colleagues are in the same place. And your fears are normal. Everybody's terrified of. So it is quite useful. Also, here in things that helped, in that writing group, we learn about some sources. For example, ResearchGate. It is a free platform where academics and clinical colleagues, they can write and they can upload all their work. And it is very interesting because it is a fast way of finding the work of colleagues. And you can read what they are writing. For example, I'm following Professor Parvin Ali, and you can, oh, Parvin just published something. Oh, it's very interesting. Let me have a read. And it is just there. And it is in your mobile, it is in your computer, and you can see this literature. And sometimes I'm inspired from other colleagues. So it is a good platform. And again, it's for free. So I like freebies. And you can have access to that. And it does help you to see, oh, I had 5% to read my article. Oh, 10%. Oh, it's very good. And gives you that boost for all the hard work that you put on. So in terms of lessons, definitely the importance to persevere, to be resilient to any challenge. Life happens. People will criticize. People will reject. But see the good side that people will read your work and might resonate with someone. It's quite good and powerful. The use of feedback, I learned so much, especially in English, how people think, how people write, why I shouldn't use the ampersand, why that is better that paragraph, putting the comma before and. So I'm learning as I go, and my peers very kindly write feedback to me. Understand the publication process, understanding the timings, understand what they are required and why they need. Ask, Parveen, you are editor of this journal. Are you interested in an article about this? And Parveen, well, no, I'm not, but I know this journal. Why you don't try in that journal? So sometimes it's not the point that you start writing something. And I did that wrong. Start writing an article and then trying to fit the article in the journal. It is better the other way around. Find a journal that you are very sympathetic with that journal, see what they write, what they like, how they like the articles, and then write your article for them. Because otherwise it is very difficult to fit something that is already made in a journal when you didn't start from that. And obviously the work is definitely much, much more. So will be useful for that. The importance of ethical considerations in research and writing. And then if you are doing primary research, definitely that will take some time. And building that confidence through practice and all learning. And including, I didn't receive yet, but sometimes I found interesting, you receive letters about your research, letters to the editor. And those letters made you reflect. The other day, I was reading a letter about one primary research about skin color and the difficult to assess because people were keeping saying it's non-blanchable. And if someone have a dark skin, it's very difficult to see non-blanchable there, or it's red or pink. You don't see that in darker skin necessarily. So it was, for me, was an important reflection. And if I was the writer of that article, I say, you know what, very good point. Because we have our own bias, and it is important to see, I didn't think about it, but I will change that. How I write, how I reflect. And some strategies, I'm nearly there. So a clear focus research topic or question, what you would like to write, outline the ideas, the structure, what you would like, and including in terms of structure, sometimes the editors very kindly and wiser will tell you, oh, are you not happy to change this order? And say, yeah, it makes more sense. Keep writing. This is a skill. More you write, more confident you are. And send to everyone, from your peers, your family members, everybody, including if they are not in the field. Great. So show them so they can give you feedback and they can feel inclusive. And ask some professionals, and sometimes they are some academics, they are happy to review your work before submission, and revise, edit with coherence, concise, familiarize with the citation style of that journal, because that could be a reason to reject straight away if it's not in the right referencing style, and be open to criticism, because when you receive something, it's not a tell-off. If they say, well, I'm happy, but you need to check, and they write a whole testament about. Good. If they took the time to write all of that, that means they are interested. You just need to change what they think it's better to be stronger. So, and again, as I said, some of them you can back and say, no, I'm happy with these as it is because this, and that. And it's fine. Including in that process is very interesting, and we can learn so much. And in that I said before, peer reviewing, it made me learn so much. Sometimes I was accepting very easily, and then I learned that sometimes people know it is a rejection and say, why is a rejection? So I could actually see bad things in other people's work that for me initially was okay. So use and embrace that opportunity to give and receive feedback. So it can be a challenge, can be very rewarding. I'm enjoying the experience. Sometimes very awkward when we see our name. And as you saw, I have 10,000 names. It's a very long name. So it's me. Someone cited me. And it's not in that pride, but oh, I contribute with these little seeds in my field. And it is important to acknowledge this challenge. It's important to implement strategies and persevere, be resilient. And thank you so much for attending. So I think now doing a little break of the presentation and
Thank
see
you so
comments
much.
and
That's been really useful. Tiago, thank you. Yeah, that's been quite useful. So I'll open the floor for questions and comments, or any points that you would like to bring up or discuss. Jim? Oh, I'm sorry, I don't know which went first. So Jim, you first, and Denise then.
Yeah. Thank you for what you said, Tiago. I was just wondering, how do you cope when you get mixed messages or mixed advice from different people about your writing? How do you kind of sort of negotiate that?
It is a very good question, and I'm happy to say my point of view. And I think Parveen, as an editor, will be including more interesting to hear from her. But it is quite interesting because it happened with me, article, and someone accepted with minor and the other reject straight. And I say, it's good or it's very bad. And normally I go for the longest feedback. So I say, maybe, yes, you accepted, but because maybe you were in a hurry, you didn't take the time to see it. But the one that I'm thinking right now, the rejecter wrote a good 2 pages of feedback. And I actually took that and say, I can get it. Definitely, your journal don't have too much about older people, so it's not the best suit for this article. And it wrote everything about all mindful to not write this way, make sure this referencing, you over reference, you don't need that much. So I took more the rejection more serious because it was long and actually improved my the one that accept with minor, it was 3 lines. And I'm glad that for him or her will be great, but actually didn't contribute, including if he's accept, it didn't tell me a lot to actually improve my writing. So I took that. But it is quite awkward because you say, okay, someone like it, but someone hate it, and you can get very personal on that. But I found it interesting because then sometimes on top of that, you have the editor with the decision. So I found for the editor, that might be a headache when you you see that and say, okay, is this good? Because am I right, Parveen, to think then you need to balance and peer that too?
Yeah, so what normally happens that, you know, if you have got the easiest decisions are where 2 people have said accept, 2 people have said reject, 2 people have said major revision, 2 people have said minor revision, so it's unanimous. usually that's not how the world works. If it's one major, one minor, you ask people to give them major corrections, and then it sorts out. If it's one major, other reject, then it's probably going to be reject, unless the reviewer who have rejected their comments won't make sense to the editor. So editors do quite a lot in terms of reading through the messages that is being given and deciding what options we give back to authors, to help them prepare for it. So and sometimes when it's very conflicting, we may go to a third person and ask them for their feedback. So you'll have 3 reviewers coming in. As a novice author, I think how Tiago has mentioned, maybe there are 2 ways of doing it. One is that you want to go on with the biggest feedback that you have got, because that would probably incorporate any smaller points that somebody else have raised in that sense anyway. So that's one way of doing it. But if you are somebody like me, what I need to have a sense of completion, a sense of achievement. And if you want to have that, then you are better off kind of, using that feedback and developing a response to reviewer letter in points, and maybe identifying points which are easier to manage. So for example, they have said, some reviewer have said spelling mistake on page 2. Deal with that, or someone have said you have not added reference here. So deal with those things. It will at least give you that sense of achievement that I've done something. And when you see the red, and when you've responded, that corrected, responded, you will feel happy. And then even if there are 2 or 3 bigger points, which probably take a lot of your time, it will psychologically make you feel, I've done all of these suggestions, is just 2 or 3 points that I'm going to do. So that's important to do that. I think what is really important when it's taking feedback is that when you receive it, just leave it at that time, because at that time you want to kill the editor and you want to kill the reviewers. So just read it, leave it aside, and after 2 days or 3 days, then you go back to it, because then it starts making sense, and you just think, actually, they're not kind of, coming after me or suggesting that what I've done is complete rubbish. And then try and acknowledge and go through it. If you do not agree with some feedback, but you agree with, you don't have to agree or respond to everything that they're asking for. But please don't be that person who says that, well, anything that you have done is completely rubbish. So I have one example. I've recently, there was somebody submitted an article, and it was rejected by 3 reviewers, 1 associate editor, and then myself. So 4, 5 people have seen it and suggested it's not worth it. It goes back to the author, and the author comes back to me and say, well, you've sent it to the wrong reviewers. Can you please find a couple of new reviewers and ask them to read it? And this area is really good, and they should be accepting it, and it will be accepted. And I said, well, if you had come back to me saying that the changes suggested are challenging, but I'm prepared to have a go at them, and I'm prepared to kind of, look at how, so I would have thought that, okay, would give you another chance. But if you're saying 4 or 5 people, what they're suggesting is all wrong, and you're not bound to listen, then what's the, I don't think I'm listening to it. So I think it's a balance of where you are, where you respond back with evidence that, thank you for raising this point. However, we don't agree, or there is this evidence which suggests contradictory sort of stuff. So which makes it easier for the editor to have a look and to decide that actually your point is making sense, and therefore it needs to be taken into consideration. It's no good just saying, well, we don't agree with you, or your reviews are rubbish, or they don't know. So I think there is a balance to respond and to help people make those decisions. So I hope that helps. 99% of the times, the peer review makes the articles much better. And you can see it from the quality that you've submitted to afterwards anyway. So it's worth taking the feedback. So I don't know if I've answered your question, Jim. How you take with feedback is sometimes with a pinch of salt, but the idea is leave it aside, go back after 2 days, and please, and it relates to not only the journal articles, but even if you are, if you have asked any colleague to give you some feedback on something, Please don't say, well, I wrote this because of this, and I had this in mind. That's the reason I did this, because that's the most irritating thing. If somebody has taken the time to give you feedback, if you don't like it, just say, thank you so much. I will consider it. Whether you consider it or not, they're not going to come back and ask you about that. But do not kind of, create that kind of animosity or justify, A, you're not improving your work. B, they're not going to help you next time because you've given them that sense that what you're telling me is not important and I'm still going to do what I'm going to do. C, very important thing which I tell my PhD students or authors who write, that there is no mini you standing with your paper or your book or your chapter, your thesis, explaining to the reader why you wrote what you wrote. So that document should speak for itself and it should be clear enough. If a reader is telling you it's not clear, I don't understand, it's not clear, full stop. Think of a way of improving it and suggesting and making it more clearer to people, rather than spending your energies trying to argue why you wrote what you wrote. I hope that answers.
Yeah,
Denise?
thank you.
Oh, sorry, Jim, did you want to say something?
I was just saying thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Yeah. Denise?
Thank you. No, this is really, really helpful. I think I'm not sure that I've got a question. I guess I'm kind of posing a scenario. So I've got I'm kind of at the stuck stage from the point of view of deciding what to write about. I've got a PhD thesis that I do need to write some papers from. And I'm just finding that just completely overwhelming, this huge document, and I just don't know where to start. So the tips around actually going, and I sort of know it. I also think those of you that have gone through PhD will recognize this. I'm kind of in post-traumatic stress from my PhD. I did it part-time and it took me a very, very, very long time. But anyway, I got there in the end. So I think, it's writing is not an issue. I've co-authored chapters. I've got one that's about to be published, but that's easy because somebody says to you, we want you to write about X. So you write about X and then they kind of give you feedback and so on and so forth. So that's fine. But it's the deciding what to write about when I've got all of this stuff to write about. And I don't know whether you've got any other kind of tips around that. I think the other tip that I found really helpful was that start with saying, would you be interested in an article about this to the editor? And I kind of knew that was what I needed to do, but actually identifying the journals is tricky. So the Puglon thing is really, really helpful. Thank you. I shall definitely be going to look at that. But I don't know if you've got any other tips about when you've got this massive document, how you kind of like choose what to write about.
Tiago, do you want to take that and then I can answer it?
Yes, I was thinking because I got your point, Denis, and I'm very sad that, for example, my BSc and master, I never did anything with it, and now it's outdated. And I put so much hours on that, and I interviewed so many people. That would be fantastic, and I'm very proud. It was 500 pages, and for nothing. Now it's under my drawer. So definitely, Denise, I encourage you. I want to read your work out, but it's where to start. And it is what you say, because it's not to write an article in a journal is not what they don't want. Is like chapter 1 and 2 from your thesis, and then article 2, chapter 3 and 4. You need to have a story, just that article itself, like what Parveen was saying, this article should stand clear alone. So it is tricky. I found very useful. I then can send to Parveen some of the articles that I read, how to convert work in articles, and they give good ideas. So I can send to you, Parveen, later, and you can disseminate with everyone, please. Because I read it and it helped, especially because I'm encouraging all my students to write with me. And it's a good way for them to see they did something with their assignment, because they hate to write assignments. And if I say, well, if it's such a great assignment and you score so high, why not to publish? And there's always that light in the end. But it takes for me forever. Another tip that I would say, Denise, is with your supervisors, if you have that good relationship after, maybe if you want to buddy up with them and they would help you to help how to remove that blockage. I will go towards there. And plus, I imagine it was a fantastic PhD because you pass it. I have PTSD before I have it, so I can imagine PhD is something that I will have a trauma after. You dedicate so much. I would say very likely to have that in open access. And some universities, they have very good collaborations with some journals. So if you have that, could get your studies in open access so more people could read and benefit from your own findings. So that is my pearl of wisdom, very small, as someone that start writing for 1 year. But I let now the expert Parve to give definitely more, and I take notes.
I think what you would find useful, I would suggest that you make a list of what can come out of your paper. So it could be that you just write, you could do it different ways. So first of all, identify what message that you want to give out to the audience. What is the learning from it? And I think that helps you kind of decide how many papers or what is coming out. The other way of looking at it, literature review, some people like systematic literature review as part of their PhDs and narrative literature review. So there are distinct sections that, okay, there is something which is coming out for literature review. There is my study, which is telling me something very useful and effective, which is coming out from it. Do you have a study? Maybe, I don't know what your study was, but your study may be involving practitioners or professionals, for example. And then you want to say that, okay, there is something which is about professionals and there is something which is about so how you want to, the message that you want to give out and how many versions or how many different messages are there. Do not do salami slicing. Do not kind of, give half message in one thing and then repeat everything again to just give not a bigger message into another paper. So that's not going to work. But what is it the message that you want to give? What are the associated message which you can have into a kind of, normally papers would allow you 7,000 to 8,000 words, or anything between 5,000 to 8,000 words, depending on what methodology you have and which journals you choose. So deciding that is one thing. Then you have a look at that. Then you can look at that list and decide which one you fancy getting out quickly, or you are able to write more quickly. And you could take help of your supervisor. But generally, I would like my PhD students at that stage to be able to come back to me and say, these are the things which I think I can write. These are the things I'm interested in. These are the journals which I have identified. And that's how, and then they could suggest, claim, ask you questions, and that would clarify. And you could start from there. So I would say that's your starting point. Helen, you have mentioned something really useful. Please, would you like to expand on that?
I agree with everything you've said, and we've talked a lot about what do the journals want and what are they focusing on. We also have to consider who are the readers. I tend to write for magazines and for journals. So if it's for a magazine, on the bus in the morning, what might people be discussing? Of course, it's still evidence-based. We want to really give good quality stuff to the public, but are we trying to get out there a public message, which is in the lay language? Are we wanting to go to academics? Are we wanting to go to cardiac nurses? Are we wanting social workers? Who is the audience? Because then we will tailor our thesis probably has so many arguments in it, but dissecting those arguments out for particular readers, probably then you'll find many different articles.
Exactly. And remember, you can't copy and paste from your thesis and create a new document for a journal article. It needs conversion. So therefore, choosing the right journal, going through the author's guidelines and picking and choosing what you need to have in there. Maybe copying and pasting is the first step, but don't depend on it. Then go back and make sure that it's aligned well and it's written well and it's current. And that's what you're, and I think that's what will make you start. So prioritizing, writing the messages, prioritizing which message you want to go for, and which journals you want to go for. There are journals selection websites. So, you could even kind of write a short little abstract and put that into a search engine, and that allows you or suggest few journals that you have. That's one way of looking at journals. You could look at the articles that you have read for when you were writing literature review, and that gives you major names of journals. That is one way of looking and starting at which journals to choose from. So just some tips which would help. I hope that answers your question and provides you some help.
Thank you. That's really practical pointers. Thank you.
Thank you.
And,
Anybody else? Any other questions? or
Parveen,
comments?
going on that question, something that sometimes I struggle with the over-referencing is some journals just accept 20 to 30 or including maximum 50 reference. And as a PhD, I imagine you had half of the world there. So you read over and over. So it is, again, might be one struggle that you can see, okay, what message, and sometimes including that literature review, you might need to break into 3 different messages. Because for the point that Ellen said, if you put too much, then people might be too confused. And again, I receive very good feedback from editors to say to break down one article in 2, say part 1, less, give some activities for the reader to be engaged, and then second mouth, you have the continuation of these in other points. And again, it is very productive feedback, because in our head, everything makes sense, but the others say, I don't, how you got that? They might be lost. So that will be my only point, but good luck,
Yeah.
Denise.
Yeah. And I'll add, I've had some lectures on my websites, which are kind of how to convert your thesis into a journal article. So I'll add that in here so that you, or email me and I'll send you that. And you'll find that helpful. Any other questions, any other comments? Sorry, Helen. Somehow I'm missing hand signs today.
I just wanted to say I agree with everything said today. I fully live it myself, and it really works what you've said, the steps you've said. Something I learned from someone else recently, which, because I'm only starting to work with students now, I'm writing, but it applies, I think, to all of us. It's powerful yet simple. And they said, read, then write.
Yeah.
And I really love that, because we have so many ideas. We do keep our journals and notebooks, and we do, but at the same time, once we've crystallized that idea, then stop. Parveen said about putting the comments away for a couple of days, but also putting our idea away for a couple of days once we've had it. Then just go and read everything, because it will challenge, it will shape what you're doing. So read, then write can be really helpful.
Exactly. But there is a balance to have. Sometimes, like you would have seen with students, that they keep on reading and reading. And then and especially if English is not your first language, which is not for me either. And one of the comfort that you get is you just think somebody may have written it better than me. So somebody may have articulated better than me, or how they have. So in that search, you keep on reading, but you don't. So nobody would write it the way you wanted it, or the way you want that. So it's important to just, unless you're going to put your pen on paper, it's not going to be written. So there is this trick to stop reading and start writing. And first draft is never perfect. It's, it's never going to be your final draft, but at least something is there on the page to edit and improve and take to the next step. So unless you read, so it's a little bit the example which I give, that if there is not enough water in the tank, there's nothing is not going to come out of the kind of tap. So you have to read to be able to write better. That's goes without saying. But irony is that academics find it really difficult to find time to read these days, isn't it? It's just, we are just too busy to read. But yeah, that's a very good tip. Thank you, Helen. Anybody else? Any other questions or comments? Excellent. I hope people found it useful, and I'm just looking at yeah, so I hope it was useful. If you have any questions or comments, please do get in touch with us. And our next webinar is, Marco, is yours, isn't it? So that would be on a very interesting topic. So we are going to advertise it very soon, and hopefully there would be more time. So I hopefully would like to see more people joining in. And if we can help you in any ways, please do get in touch with us, and we will do whatever we can to help and support. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for joining.
Everyone. Thank you
so much.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.